Hi, printmakers. As you know, I'm out today, and the idea is to follow the sub plan that I've already put in Power School to work in your aesthetic journal. Should be a nice, relaxed day where you're printing images, collaging found images, or maybe even drawing or painting, anything on those 10 to 15 pages that best exhibits the style of art that you appreciate or that you see or want to see in your own work. So that's most people, and definitely majority of you doing etching should go straight into that. Please hear this next part though, everybody, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So, well, that's the main objective for today while I'm out. I also want to make sure that next week we are all starting in with mark making on either etching or linoleum block or plate. So for etching people, that means that you need to make sure you have your etching plate cut to the size of your image. And I wanted to remind you how to do that. And so let me just turn to this workstation here and show you the process of that. You're going to take your plate and figure out, okay, what size do you want it to be based on the image that you printed, and or you could print the image the size that the plate already is. And I'm just going to use this old scrap. I've put it on a cutting mat, and it's the same process for cutting the linoleum. You are going to just use either the tear bar or something heavy, and you're going to repeatedly go over the plexiglass and cut it, and careful because you're using an X-Acto knife. And then after doing that several times, it will weaken it, and then you should be able to break it. When I come back next week, I would love to see everyone with the plate and the image size the exact same. There we go. So all I did, I think my hands may have been on the screen, I just pulled that back and broke that. And so then this would be the plexiglass that I'll work on, and of course, like I've said several times, my image would fit exactly behind it. You could go ahead and put a piece of tape and tape it right back there, okay? So if you're an etcher and you've done that, or after you do that, then you're finished with this video. You can sign off and just work on the journal as planned. Linoleum people, you need to do the same thing. You need to have printed your image, and you need to get your block cut to the exact size. So again, let me show you that process. It's right here, same exact idea. Use the grid lines of the self-healing mat to level this all out. You don't want a crooked block. We don't want to have done all this and ended up with a crooked block. And we definitely don't want it to be the wrong size. We don't have enough blocks to just be cutting randomly. It is also just really easy to pick a block that's the same size that you happen to already print. And I think that was what we ended up spending the most of our time last time doing. So then just bend the block, and unlike the linoleum unlike the plexiglass that snaps in half, the linoleum, you need to go over the rope on the back. Of course, if you're using the mounted linoleum, you're not going to be able to cut that, and you need to adjust your image size. Several of you are downstairs in the lab working with me on that, and so you can guide others on how to do that. But again, I do not want to spend any time next week printing images or cutting plates or blocks. So please, please, please do this first. Okay, so that's that, but we're not done. If you're a linoleum person, it would be very helpful if you could do this next part, which is transferring. So etchers, you don't need to do that because, like several people said, it's clear, so you don't need to transfer an image. But how do we put an image onto the block? How do you know where it's going to go? So obviously, unlike the plexiglass, I can't see through it, but I need to get this onto here. So that's where you can use one of these two things. These are called carbon transfer paper. There's white and there's black. You know that with linoleum, you're carving away the white. So some people like to use this, and some people like the clarity of using the black. Either way you go, those supplies are over here in the window, and there's a container of pens, ballpoint pens. So, linoleum people only, I want you to do this before you work on your aesthetic journal. Mine's such a bad example because my picture is not the right size, but yours would align perfectly. So your picture would just go right over this. And I'm just going to kind of show you just on this sample block how the carbon paper works. So you would tape down your image so that it doesn't move, and you'll use the ballpoint pen to trace. Let's suggest getting one that works. To trace over all of the lines. This is how you're going to know where to carve. You will still have your reference image, so I would not trace a ton of different details. Otherwise, it's just going to get very muddy and hard to understand. So I wouldn't do every single shift in value unless it's just super important. You're all very capable of looking at a reference image and making marks based on that. So you've done this with me before, many of you. You can see that the fence posts that I was transferring are exactly where I want them to be. I would never, if I were working on this, do what I just did, which is lift the whole thing up, because what's going to happen, it's not going to line back up, hence why you need to tape it, and also why your paper needs to be the exact size as your block, okay? So if you want to use the white, it's the same exact process, just make sure the whiter side is down. Same with the black, make sure the black is actually facing down. Don't transfer the entire thing onto the back of your reference photo. It has happened, it's okay, but it's just better if you don't. So now I just kind of wanted to show you the difference in the way the two transfer papers look. With the white, you have to press a little harder. Don't go too hard with your pressure for the black carbon if you decide to use that. And you can see I pressed quite a bit harder with the white, and it's just barely visible, but sometimes people prefer that. So either way you go, the idea, linoleum people, is get that image onto your linoleum, okay? That might take longer than I'm anticipating. You may not have a ton of time to work on the journal. We can figure that out later, but the key is next week we are all physically carving or marking right into those plates. So anyway, I hope you have some fun without me, and have a good weekend, and feel free to email with any questions. Bye.